Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something really different. We're going to be exploring this cookbook called the Any Game Cookbook.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not about cooking food.
Oh,
It's full of these, recipes that claim to transform any game into a spiritual experience.
huh. That's really interesting because one of the things that really struck me when I first looked at the book was that it kind of avoids defining spiritual or spiritual gaming.
Oh, interesting. So it's more about personal exploration then, like you figure it out as you go.
Yeah, exactly. It encourages us to discover our own understanding through experience rather than trying to give us a fixed definition.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm looking at some of the recipe titles here. Things like I'm a toy, sit in the box,
Yeah.
clown phase. I gotta say, they sound more silly than spiritual at first glance.
I can see why you might say that. It definitely has a playful, unconventional approach.
It does.
But I think that's part of its charm, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes approaching things with a sense of playfulness can actually open us up to new insights that we might miss if we're being too serious.
Okay, I'm willing to keep an open mind. So can we maybe start with what the book actually says about spiritual gaming? Because even that concept feels a bit fuzzy to me.
Sure. The author actually uses a really helpful analogy in the introduction. They compare spiritual gaming to a bug emerging from between two sheets of plywood,
Okay, I'm picturing that.
and suddenly, it's aware of up and down for the first time.
Right.
I think what they're getting at is that spiritual gaming is like that it helps us break free from our usual way of seeing things.
So it's about shifting our perception, kind of like seeing the world with fresh eyes.
Exactly. And I think the cookbook format is really clever because it makes the concept really tangible.
Right, it's not just abstract philosophy. It's like, here are some things you can actually do.
Exactly. It's about actively doing something, experimenting with these recipes and seeing what happens, how it changes our experience of playing games.
All right, well, let's dive into some of these recipes then. One that caught my eye is called I Wish.
Oh yeah, this one is all about setting an intention before you start playing. The book suggests beginning each game with this wish. May this be used for the benefit of all beings everywhere.
It seems so simple, but I can see how bringing that kind of awareness to the game could shift the energy.
Yeah, it's subtle,
Yeah.
but I think it taps into the power of intention, even in everyday life, right? When we approach something with a positive intention, it often influences the outcome.
That makes sense. What about this beads on a string recipe? That one sounds intriguing.
Yes. This one encourages you to visualize each turn in the game as a distinct bead on a necklace. It's about being present, really aware of the flow of the game.
Kind of reminds me of mindfulness practices.
Exactly. And it highlights how these seemingly simple techniques can tap into deeper psychological and maybe even spiritual principles.
Now, I'm curious about this one. Hanging down,
Oh, yes.
playing a game upside down.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm flexible enough for that.
No, don't worry. It's not meant to be taken literally. The recipe is about imagining yourself playing the game while hanging upside down.
Oh, I see. So shifting your perspective mentally.
Exactly. And even that simple act of imagination can be powerful because it helps us to challenge our assumptions and see things from a new angle.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
What about I'm a toy? This one is intriguing, but also a little confusing.
So this recipe is about letting go of control and surrendering to the flow of the game. It suggests approaching each turn as if you were a wind-up toy,
Oh,
carrying out your pre-programmed actions.
so it's about non-attachment,
Exactly.
like accepting whatever happens.
Exactly. That's a core principle in a lot of spiritual traditions.
I'm starting to see how these techniques, while presented in a playful way, actually touch on some pretty profound concepts.
They really do. That's part of the book's brilliance. It makes these deeper philosophical and spiritual ideas accessible and fun to experiment with.
Okay, I have to know about sit and box.
Oh yeah, this one's a classic. It literally tells you to play the game while sitting inside a cardboard box.
Seriously? Are they serious? What's the point of that?
Well, I think it's about breaking down our self-importance and embracing a childlike sense of playfulness.
So it's like, don't take yourself or the game too seriously.
Exactly. It's a reminder that sometimes we need to just let go and have fun, and that can be incredibly liberating.
All right, last but not least, tell me about clown face. This one has me a little nervous.
Picture this. Playing a serious game, like chess or Go, in full clown makeup.
Wow, okay. I'm trying to wrap my head around that one. What's the deeper meaning there?
It's about using humor and absurdity to challenge the seriousness that we often bring to our lives.
So it's not about making fun of the game itself, but rather using humor to shift our perspective.
You got it. Humor can be such a powerful tool for breaking down barriers and opening us up to new ways of seeing things.
I never thought of it that way. It's like using laughter as a bridge to a new perspective.
Exactly. And that's what's so exciting about these recipes. They offer a really unique way to tap into deeper levels of awareness and understanding.
This is making me rethink the way I approach games. It seems like these little shifts in perspective could have a ripple effect on other areas of life, too.
Absolutely. Spiritual gaming isn't about escaping from reality. It's about bringing a heightened awareness to all of our experiences.
As we're talking, I'm realizing there's another concept from the book we need to explore.
Mm-hmm.
These X factors that the author mentions.
Yeah.
They seem to be really important to understanding how a regular game can become something more profound.
The X factors, yes, they're fascinating. They're like these subtle elements that can really change our experience of something, taking it from ordinary to extraordinary.
And there isn't just one single X factor, right?
Yeah.
Seems like it's about experimenting and finding what works for each individual.
That's exactly right. One of the most interesting examples is this being with another person experiment that's described in the appendix. It shows how just sitting in silence with someone can become really powerful when you bring in certain X factors.
This being with another person experiment sounds really intriguing. Can you walk us through it a bit? What are these specific X factors, and how do they work together to create that powerful experience?
Of course. The experiment involves creating a very specific environment and a set of conditions. It involves creating a very specific environment and a set of conditions. Things like complete silence, relaxed facial muscles, and gazing into the other person's eyes with a soft focus.
Those sound kind of like some of the individual recipe elements we talked about earlier, like I wish, and some of the ideas from beads on a string.
You're right. And the book emphasizes that it's the combination of these elements rather than any single one that makes the experience really transformative.
That's not just one magic ingredient then, but like a whole recipe.
Exactly. Each ingredient contributes something important to the overall effect.
I like that analogy. The book encourages us to play with these X factors, right? To kind of experiment and see what happens when we tweak things.
Exactly. It's about taking an active role in shaping your experience, becoming an alchemist of your own perception.
That's a cool way to put it. So what are some other examples of X factors that the book mentions?
Well, there are a bunch of them. They range from things like physical posture and breathing patterns to the environment you're playing in. One recipe even suggests playing a game while sitting in an empty bathtub.
Wait, empty bathtub. I'm picturing soggy game boards and pruned fingers.
No water involved. It's more about shifting the context, seeing how being in that unexpected environment changes the energy of the game.
Oh, I see. It's about breaking out of our usual routines and creating a sense of novelty.
Exactly. The book also talks about X factors related to sound and rhythm.
Oh.
Like one recipe called Keep the Rhythm suggests playing a game while tapping out a steady beat with your feet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I can see how that might help with focus, but wouldn't it be distracting for the other players?
The book says to keep it subtle. It's more about adding a subtle rhythmic layer to the experience, seeing how it affects you internally.
So it's like adding this hidden dimension to the game, a sensory experience beyond just the rules and the pieces.
Exactly. It's like hacking the game to create a richer experience.
Speaking of hacking the game, there's another X factor I wanted to ask about, this idea of subliminal scenes.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't quite grasp that concept. Can you unpack it a bit?
Sure. Imagine you're watching a movie, and there's a single frame flashed on the screen for just a split second.
Okay.
Too quick to consciously register, but it might still have an effect on your subconscious.
Oh, interesting.
The book suggests that games might have something similar, subtle elements, like the art on the cards or the shapes of the pieces that carry a deeper meaning.
So we're not just playing the game, we're also becoming detectives of our own experience, looking for those hidden clues.
That's a great way to put it. It's about becoming more attuned to all those subtle layers of meaning, both within ourselves and in the world around us.
This is all so fascinating. I'm really starting to see games in a whole new light. But it brings up a question: how do we know if we're doing this right? Is there a way to measure our progress in spiritual gaming? It all feels very subjective.
That's a really good question, and one that the book addresses directly. It argues that there's no single right way to do spiritual gaming.
Which makes sense, given that it's all about personal exploration.
Exactly. It's not about achieving some specific outcome or reaching some predetermined level of enlightenment.
So it's more about the journey itself.
Exactly. It's about the process of self-discovery that unfolds as we play and experiment with these techniques and perspectives.
It's like that saying, it's not the destination, it's the journey.
That's a great way to put it. The book has this great analogy of tasting a cake. You can read the recipe all you want, but you won't truly know what it tastes like until you actually bake it and try it.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes how spiritual gaming, like baking a cake, is an experiential process.
Absolutely. It's about diving in and savoring the experience, trusting that the insights and discoveries we make will be the perfect ones for us.
This is really inspiring. I'm feeling a renewed sense of wonder about the games I play and the possibilities
It's
they
about the magic of it. It's about rediscovering that childlike sense of curiosity and playfulness.
As we've been talking, I keep coming back to that image of the bug emerging from between the sheets of plywood.
It's a powerful image, isn't it?
It really is. It makes me wonder what other hidden dimensions are waiting to be discovered in the games we play. What new perspectives are out there waiting to be uncovered?
Those are great questions. And the book takes it a step further. It suggests that we can actually apply these principles of spiritual gaming to any area of life, not just games themselves.
Oh, interesting. So it's not about turning everything into a game, but
Yeah.
about bringing that same sense of playfulness and intention to all of our experiences.
Exactly. It's about seeing the world as this vast playground full of opportunities for exploration and discovery.
I love that. So it's like we're being invited to step into a new way of being, where everything becomes an opportunity for growth and connection and joy.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it.
This conversation has been so thought-provoking. I'm excited to keep exploring this idea of spiritual gaming.
Me too. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm feeling a real sense of hope about the potential for spiritual gaming to transform not just our own lives, but the world around us.
What do you mean by that? How could it transform the world?
Well, imagine if we could bring this spirit of playfulness and connection to our interactions with each other, to our communities, even to the way we approach global challenges.
Wow, that's a powerful vision. It's like we're being called to reimagine the very fabric of our society.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe the games we play can help show us the way.
This is definitely a conversation I want to keep having. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with me today.
It's been my pleasure. And to our listeners, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you ever experienced something like spiritual gaming? What are your thoughts on this idea? We invite you to share your experiences and keep the conversation going.
This book really surprised me in a lot of ways. One thing that stood out was how it tackles these big questions. Things like reincarnation, alternate realities, the nature of consciousness.
I know, right? It's so much more than just a guide to gaming. It's an invitation to explore these deep philosophical and spiritual mysteries.
And it does it in such a fun and engaging way, like the author saying, hey, let's lighten up and see where these ideas take us.
That's the beauty of it. It's about embracing the mystery and allowing ourselves to be surprised by what we discover along the way.
Speaking of surprises, there's one recipe that I think really captures the spirit of this book. It's called By Any Other Name.
Oh, I love that one. It suggests referring to all the other players in the game by your own name.
I know, when I first read that, I thought, wait, what? It seemed so strange.
It does, doesn't it? But it's a really clever way to challenge our assumptions about identity and our relationships with others.
It's like we're being invited to see ourselves and everyone else, to recognize that underlying connection we all share.
Exactly. It's a playful way to break down those ego barriers and tap into a deeper sense of unity and compassion.
This book has been such a treasure to explore. It's really shifted my perspective on what games can be.
Me too. And I think it has the potential to spark a much larger conversation about the power of play and the hidden depths of human experience.
Absolutely. To our listeners, we encourage you to check out the Any Game Cookbook for yourselves. Pick up a copy, grab your favorite game, and embark on your own adventure.
You might be surprised by what you discover, both within the game and within yourself.
Remember, the games we play can be so much more than just pastimes. They can be gateways to deeper meaning, connection, and transformation.
So play with intention, explore with curiosity, and let the magic unfold.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep playing, and keep those dice rolling. One of the things that really impressed me about this book was how it wasn't afraid to tackle the big questions.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it delves into things like reincarnation and alternate realities, even the nature of consciousness.
I know, it goes so much deeper than you'd expect from a book about games. It's like a gateway into these really profound philosophical and spiritual ideas.
Right, and it does it in such a down-to-earth way The tone is so approachable, almost playful.
It is, like the author saying, let's have some fun with these big ideas. Let's not take ourselves too seriously.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so engaging. It's not about finding definitive answers. It's about enjoying the journey of exploration.
And being open to surprise along the way.
Speaking of surprises, there's one recipe that really embodies that spirit for me. It's called By Any Other Name.
Oh yeah, that's a classic. The one where you refer to all the other players by your own name.
I know. When I first read that, I was like, what? It seems so weird.
It does seem strange at first, but if you think about it, it's a really clever way to challenge our assumptions about identity.
Right. It's like a little mind game that helps us see beyond our usual ego boundaries.
Exactly. And ultimately, I think it points to that deeper truth of interconnectedness, the idea that we're all part of something larger than ourselves.
This book has really opened my eyes to the possibilities of what games can be. They're not just a way to pass the time. They can be tools for self-discovery and spiritual growth.
That's what I love about this whole concept of spiritual gaming. It invites us to see the world with fresh eyes, to rediscover that sense of playfulness and wonder that we often lose as adults.
It's been such a pleasure exploring these ideas with you today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights.
The pleasure was all mine. And to our listeners, if you're intrigued by this idea of spiritual gaming, I encourage you to check out the Any Game Cookbook for yourselves.
Grab a copy, gather your friends, and see what happens when you bring this spirit of playfulness and intention to your next game night.
You might be amazed by what you discover.
Remember, the games we play can be so much more than just games. They can be doorways to deeper meaning, connection, and even transformation.
So play with intention, explore with curiosity, and see what magic unfolds.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep playing, and keep those dice rolling.